The settlement was a ghost of its former ambition, a collection of pressurized, interconnected biodomes, huddling together against the corrosive, toxic dust storms that now perpetually raged across the landscape. The hydroponic farms were failing. The water recyclers were clogged with fine red grit. The people were starving. Hope was a forgotten luxury. But one man was not starving. One man had never trusted the grand communal dream. His name was Jax. He was a first-generation colonist, a survivalist, a man who had seen the flaw in the plan from the very beginning. While others built a community, he built a fortress, his private biodome, a massive self-sustaining habitat powered by its own deep-core geothermal well, stood alone on a high, windswept plateau, a defiant island of green in a sea of red dust. He had water, he had food, he had power. In this dying world he was the only king. Alara stood before the massive airlock of his fortress, the red dust swirling around her ankles. Her father, the settlement's nominal leader, stood beside her, his face a mask of gaunt desperation. Alara was beautiful even now. Her skin was the color of a twilight sky, a soft tan that was a stark contrast to the grim red world around her. But her beauty was a fragile thing, her frame thin from hunger, her large violet eyes shadowed with the quiet despair that had become the settlement's only true crop. She knew why her father had brought her here. The settlement's last water purifier had failed. They were days away from total collapse, and they were here to trade their last most valuable asset, her. The airlock hissed open, revealing not a man, but a sterile decontamination chamber. A synthesized voice, cold and impersonal, instructed them to enter and await scanning. Alara's father, a proud man now reduced to a beggar, obeyed without question. Alara followed, her heart a cold stone of dread in her chest. She was a lamb being led to slaughter. After the scan, an inner door opened, leading into a vast, humid arboretum, a riot of green, living things that made Alara's eyes ache with a beauty she had forgotten existed. And there, waiting for them, was Jax. He was a hard man, his face carved from granite, his eyes the color of a stormy sea. He was dressed in a simple, functional work jumpsuit, his powerful frame radiating a quiet, absolute confidence. He looked at her father with a cool, dismissive contempt. Then his gaze fell on her. It was not a look of lust, it was a look of appraisal. The look of a rancher inspecting a prize heifer at market. Her father, his voice cracking with shame and desperation, made the offer. Jax, our water purifier is gone. We are dying. We have nothing left to trade. Nothing but, he gestured to Alara, his hand trembling. My daughter, Alara, she is of prime breeding age, strong genetic stock. She will be your settlement bride. She will serve you, in every way. In exchange, we need water, food, enough to survive. The humiliation was a physical force. Alara stood there, her head bowed, feeling like a piece of meat on a hook. Her father had just sold her for the lives of the people he had failed to lead. Jax listened to the pathetic offer, his expression unchanging. His internal monologue was a river of cold, hard contempt. He saw the desperation in the old man's eyes, the shame in the girl's posture. He had predicted this moment for years, the collapse of their fragile, idealistic society. And now they came to him, offering their prettiest flower in exchange for the survival he had so diligently secured for himself. He looked at Alara. She was beautiful, yes, a flawless specimen, a hothouse flower raised in the artificial comfort of the main settlement dome. But he saw not beauty, he saw weakness. She was soft, untested. She knew nothing of the brutal reality of this world. She would be a liability, another useless mouth to feed. His fortress was a finely tuned machine for survival, not a sanctuary for decorative, helpless things. He let the silence stretch, savoring the weight of their desperation. Then he spoke, his voice as hard and unforgiving as the world outside. No, the word was a gunshot in the quiet green arboretum. Alara's father stared at him, his face slack with disbelief. I don't trade for useless things, Jax continued, his cold gaze fixed on Alara. And she, he said, his voice dripping with condescending pity, is the most useless thing you could have possibly offered me. She is soft, pampered. She would be a drain on my resources. A distraction. Your offer is rejected. The rejection was more profound, more humiliating than any acceptance could have been. He hadn't just refused her body, he had refused her very worth as a bargaining chip. He had deemed her, and the life she represented, as having zero value. Her father began to stammer, to plead, but Jax cut him off with a sharp, dismissive gesture. He looked at Alara, a flicker of something new, something cold and calculating, in his eyes. He would not accept her as a payment, but perhaps he could forge her into something of value. However, he said, his voice dropping, I am not without a certain sporting interest. He turned his gaze fully on Alara, who stood frozen in a state of numb, abject shame. "You want to earn a place here? You want to prove you are more than just a pretty, useless mouth to feed?" He pointed through the massive plasteel window of the arboretum, towards the distant hazy shape of a plateau on the horizon. "The atmospheric condenser on the southern ridge is failing. The settlement needs it. On that plateau, half buried in the dust, is the wreckage of the original colony scout ship, the Odyssey. Its primary hydro converter should still be intact. I won't fix the condenser for your father. But if you," he said, the word a sharp, pointed challenge, "can make your way to the wreck, salvage the converter and bring it back here to me, I will consider a new arrangement. I will consider the possibility that you have earned the privilege of my protection." It was an impossible task, a death sentence. The plateau was a 3-day journey across the most hostile, storm-racked part of the desert. No one had made that trek in years. He was sending her out to die. But as she looked at him, at his hard, unyielding face, she saw not a choice but a challenge. Her old life was over. Her father had tried to sell her as a bride. This man was offering her a chance, however slim, to forge a new life, a life earned not by her beauty, but by her own strength. It was a cruel, impossible chance, but it was the only one she had. "I accept," she whispered, her voice a thin, reedy sound. But for the first time it was her own. Her journey was a descent into a red, dusty hell. Jax gave her a basic survival suit, a canister of water, 3 nutrient packs, and a map. Nothing more. He watched from his control room as she stepped out of his airlock and was immediately swallowed by the vast, hostile landscape. He tracked her with a silent, high-altitude drone, his face an impassive mask. He watched her struggle. He watched her fall and get back up. He watched her huddle in the lee of a rock formation during a howling, corrosive dust storm that lasted for an entire day. He expected her to turn back, to give up, to die. His internal monologue was a clinical observation of a fascinating experiment. Subject displays unexpected resilience. Pain threshold is higher than anticipated. Psychological state is shifting from despair to grim determination. He felt a flicker of grudging respect. The hothouse flower had thorns. She was not breaking. She was adapting for Alara. The journey was a crucible that burned away the last vestiges of the person she had been. The pampered daughter of Lord Theron died somewhere out there in the red dust. The gnawing hunger, the searing thirst, the constant abrading wind, the terror of the toxic storms, it stripped her down to her very core. And at her core she did not find the soft, helpless creature she had always believed herself to be. She found a survivor. She found a strength she never knew she possessed, a cunning, a resilience. Her mind, once filled with poetry and art, now became a cold, hard calculator of risk, of distance, of her dwindling water supply. She was no longer a jewel. She was a blade being forged and tempered in the fires of a dying world. She reached the wreck of the Odyssey on the 3rd day, her body a canvas of bruises and cuts, her lungs burning, but her will a core of hard, unyielding iron. She found the hydro converter. It was heavy, awkward, but she managed to free it from the wreckage. The journey back was even harder. She was weakened, carrying the heavy piece of machinery. But now she was driven by a new, fierce purpose. She was not just surviving. She was returning to face the man who had sent her into this hell. She was returning to claim her reward. When she stumbled back to his airlock 5 days after she had left, she was barely recognizable. She was caked in red dust, her suit was torn, her face was gaunt, but her eyes blazed with a fire that made him pause. She dropped the heavy hydro converter onto the deck at his feet, the clang of the metal echoing in the silent arboretum. "I have brought you your price," she rasped, her voice a raw, broken sound. Jax looked from the converter to her, at the new, hard strength in her face. His experiment had yielded an unexpected result. The soft, useless girl was gone. In her place stood a warrior, a survivor, something worthy of his attention. He gave a single, slow nod, the first sign of true approval she had ever seen from him. "So you have," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You have proven you are not useless. You have earned your place." He led her into the fortress to a clean white room with a sonic bath and a medical scanner. "Heal yourself," he commanded. "Then come to me." When she emerged, clean and bandaged, her beautiful skin now covered in a network of new faint scars, she found him in his private study. It was a stark, functional room, its walls lined with maps and schematics. He did not offer her a seat. He simply looked at her, his appraisal different now. It was no longer the look of a man inspecting livestock. It was the look of a master craftsman inspecting a blade he has just forged. "The position of settlement bride is no longer on the table," he said, his voice flat. "I have no use for a bride." He paused, his gaze intense. "But I have use for a survivor. I have use for a partner with a will of iron." He laid out the new terms. "This is my world, Alara, my kingdom of dust and silence. I am its king, and a king needs a queen. Not a soft decorative thing to be paraded at court, but a true queen, a woman of strength and resilience who can stand beside him and help him rule. This was the ultimate prize. More than food, more than water, more than survival. It was a place, a purpose. He was not offering her safety as a charity. He was offering her power as a reward she had earned with her own blood and will. She looked at him, at this hard, ruthless, magnificent man who had sent her into hell, and in doing so had helped her find her own strength. Her awe, her respect, her profound and unwilling admiration had coalesced into a new, powerful emotion. Desire. I accept the terms, she said, her voice steady and clear. Your service will be to me, he warned, his voice a low growl. Your loyalty absolute. I know, she said. A queen's loyalty belongs only to her king. She closed the distance between them, her gaze unwavering. I am no longer the pathetic offering my father tried to sell you. I am the woman who crossed the deadlands and returned. I have earned my place at your side, and I choose to be there. This was his true victory. He hadn't accepted the easy, broken prize. He had forged a new one, a creature of beauty and strength worthy of his world, and she had come to him not as a beggar but as an equal, willingly offering her fealty. He pulled her to him, his mouth claiming hers in a kiss that was not a claiming of a victim but a sealing of an alliance. It was a kiss of dust and fire, of respect and possession, of two solitary survivors finding a new world in each other. The king had found his queen not in a treaty room, but in the heart of the storm, and together they would rule their kingdom of dust.